I paid over $800 for this dash harness from year one. So it's absolutely crucial that I get all the electrical connections correct. The last thing I want to do is fry that $800 dash harness. And even worse, I don't want to have a problem when it's in the car. And even worse than that, I don't want to cause a fire inside the car. So I'm not sure where they go. Is that too wide? All right, turning the lights on. Okay, so it makes sense that everything you need would come out of this part of the harness. The crappy thing is that the positive wire going in here is black. And he said at the Molex connector, it's also black. Blue and white accessory. This plug goes to electric windows. But anyway, we've got our green and our blue and white here, which is going to the hideaway headlights. And before we deep dive into everything, just really quick, if you're looking up the part numbers for this thing, it was kind of weird. I feel like they didn't do a good job of describing the harness on year one, but let me show you. So this is another dash harness, part number 30080, and it says here, basically 72 Dodge Plymouth B-body except rally gauges. So this one is for this car that has the standard dash. Let me show you what the website says. So here's all the harnesses. Dash harness 72 Plymouth Dodge B-bodies with gauges. So I think this was the one I ordered for the rally dash. So I think the with gauges means rally dash. And you see over here, all it says is 72 dash harness 72 Plymouth Dodge B-body models without gauges, reproduction. I mean, obviously the standard dash has gauges as well, but I think what they're referring to is, you know, the round gauges that the rally dash comes with. Okay, this was not on my cluster. It was on the cluster I got from my buddy Chris. So I'm stealing it, putting it here. There's actually some witness lines here where the original was, so we know that's where it went. I also looked at some pictures online just to verify, and it is showing this guy right there. Wire wheel that a little bit first. So for anybody trying to do their electrical, this is actually a really good shot before all the wiring comes in here. This guy goes to here, and then you've got this guy comes off of here and feeds to here, here, here. And this is the voltage drop. So this will be 5 volts coming off of here to feed the gauges. So power in there, not sure, that's got to be from the harness. Okay. Orange light right here. We plug this guy in as well. Okay. Here's the other orange light socket. And then violet is going to go right here. So I'm not going to hook up my clock, but I wanted to show you this. This wire basically feeds the clock. It's going to connect there on that side. And then on this side, it would go straight to the amp meter gauge. So it would get 12 volts to there. I'm not going to plug this in because my clock isn't working and it was throwing sparks. So we are going to leave it off, but I wanted to let you know that's where it goes so that if you're wiring up your own car and you want to check it, you know where that wire goes. Okay, these two black wires, I'm not sure about. Black usually means ground. There's a tab here on the voltage drop. Maybe one of them goes there. This one, it should be 12 volts in, but what is the inlet? I don't know. All right, so let's go ahead and hook up power to the amp meter. We still have these two black wires. I mean, lengthwise makes sense, it would go here and here, but this has got to be 12 volts in. I got to see if we get 12 volts there. It shows 12 volts, but it doesn't show where it's coming from. This one here, which is G120BK, which is black, G120BK basically goes to the accessory feed. So, all right. And we've got this capacitor. Doesn't show capacitor on here. I'm not seeing it anyway. This says cluster ground, X10A188K, which goes here. So, I mean, my thought would be, you know, one of these goes here, one of these goes to the ground, but they're both black wires. I'm inclined to think these are grounds because they're black, you know. Okay, I think I figured out one of the black wires. Okay, so here's the two black wires. There's a shorter one and a longer one. Going off of the schematic here, we've got a X10A188K. We follow this guy down there, jump the page, come down, and it goes to here, which is like, what the hell is that? Some sort of plug. And then it loops over here and it basically just says ground. So what I think that is, in the harness here, we've got this guy here, which is a ground wire, which this one, again, this is the standard dash, but you can see there's a ground wire here and it goes into the harness. So same thing here, I believe. We hook that up to the dash. We ground it to the dash right there. So I'm checking continuity. I hooked up my multimeter and I got it set to ohms, the little beep sound. I'm just checking continuity. If we touch these two together, it tells me continuity. All right, so in this case, I've got this set to this ground wire here. I come over to this guy here and I'm not getting anything, but the longer wire here, so that tells me this wire and that wire are connected. So I know this wire's the ground, which means on our voltage drop here, this guy is gonna go on that. I need to bend this out. Okay, longer wire here. Come on. Is that too wide? It seems too wide. It seems too wide to go on there. Alright. Alright, here's a voltage drop. You can see it's too wide for this. Yeah, it's not gonna fit in there. And the thing is too, is this one doesn't look like anything was ever on here. It's kind of rusty, but I don't think anything was ever plugged into it. Okay, I'm trying to test out the dash lights on the 72 charger dash. I got the power supply here. I got it set to just over 12 volts. When that light is on, I've got power going to the dash. But I just want to show you what I got everything hooked up to first. So the ground lead I have going to the ground on the dash. The positive lead I have going to the amp meter. So if I turn this on, basically I'm gonna pull that out. One, it's too bright in here, you can't really see, but if I come over to this side, see the light on? Light on. Now I'm gonna see if I can get it dark enough in here for you to see the lights in the cluster. I got power supplied to the dash. I think I'll have to wait for it to get a little darker. All right, I think it's dark enough to record the dash lights coming on. I got my power supply on. All right, turning the lights on. Dimming the lights, making them brighter. Very cool. Pretty confusing, or at least I was confused. And I got some help. I think I'm still a little bit stumped about something, but hopefully I can figure it out. So let's go over it, and let's go over everything, you know, one piece at a time. And if you're doing a 71, 72, 3s and 4s are pretty much the same, but they move the gauges around, so this might help you as well. All right, so here we go. All right, reached out on for bbodiesonly.com. Got some cool stuff to share with you from this, and there's a lot of guys in here, I think, that know a lot of stuff, so I was lucky enough to get a response. So let's start with what my question was. Got some 71, 72 B-Body Rally Dash questions. My car is originally equipped with the standard dash, so I don't have the original rally harness to look at. I bought the new harness from year one. Number one, does the blue wire with the white stripe A plug, which is here, there's the A, or there's my A, so there's the blue wire with the white stripe, labeled A, plug into the 12 volt supply on the voltage drop. I'm calling this a voltage drop. I guess it's a voltage limiter. So my question was, does this 12 volts go into here? There's the capacitor. This side might be hard to see here from the coloring, but basically this is like a pigtail that goes from here to each one of the gauges. Because they're all black, I would assume that this is the ground, right? Like, or like the negative side, but you know, that C is ground. So my thought is that a positive needs to come in here as 12 volts. It would go through this limiter and it would come out 5 volts to supply the gauges. That's what I thought. When I checked this wire, I don't have a steering column plugged in, but when I jump at the connector, there's power here, which I would assume would be when the key comes on, based on looking at the schematic. This wire seems to be tied to the ignition switch, power to it when the key is on. That's an assumption on my part. So it makes sense. This is where it goes, although it doesn't seem to reach. It's in this part of the harness. It's not coming out of this part of the harness where everything else that supplies this side of the cluster is. So it doesn't really make sense that that would plug in here. If I did plug it in here, I'd have to put a extension wire or something. I also asked, does a ground have to be plugged into C? It's clear to me that this voltage limiter, obviously the case is grounded to the cluster, so this would be a ground wire. Does it really need a ground wire? I'm kind of guessing not, because assuming your cluster is grounded well to the dash frame. Extra ground can't hurt anything, right? There's 2 black wires from the harness, but they're not wide enough to plug onto this post, meaning here. So let me scroll down. Let's see. I guess I didn't label them. I'll just go show you. Okay, so here we are on this side of the cluster. There's the voltage limiter. Out of the harness, this is the part of the harness that supplies this side of the cluster. Okay, so it makes sense that everything you need would come out of this part of the harness. So I have a connector here and the connector here. These are the only 2 things left that don't have a wire going to it. These 2 wires come out of this harness, which you would think, okay, it makes sense. These 2 guys would, you know, go to here or here maybe. This one, the one that's a little bit longer, well, it makes sense that it would ground to here, right? Because again, continuity to that plug on the driver's side. Problem, this does not fit in there. This is wide compared to these are narrow. This would fit something like that. But so that confused me. I'm thinking it doesn't fit that. So now where do these wires go? And they're both black, so it made me think that both of these guys go to ground. However, there's no continuity to ground here. Okay, let's read on. There's a green wire D and another blue wire with a white stripe E, which also, typo, seems to be tied to the ignition switch. Any ideas where these are supposed to go? Any help's greatly appreciated, Johnny. So here's the green wire and here's the other blue and white wire, which come out here, and the only thing, you know, they have these ring connectors. The only thing in this area that, you know, has a ring connection would be the amp meter. So I was thinking maybe these went to a radio because the radio is going to be down here, but The radios I have don't have that kind of connector. This is from Furious 70. MyMopar.com, I think, has all the wiring diagrams. I've gone through the same exercise working on converting mine. So shout out to Furious 70. The diagrams there didn't help. However, this is a huge resource. So let me show you. Just real quick, this is a little tangent, basically. You come here, and then service manual library. Go here, close whatever the crap that is. And then I'm coming over to the 71 manual. And dude, these are awesome. So all the manuals are here, basically. There's your manual. This one has the body electrical. I think the electrical to the dash harness is actually a separate manual. So this didn't have what I needed. But just real quick, what was it? Section 5, body electrical. Usually it's at the end. Okay, so there's the connectors and stuff. So we got a lot of body wiring schematics, but and like headlights and stuff like that. I think even engine bay, but nothing behind the dash. So anyway, this is a huge help. I mean, this is freaking awesome. But it does not have, you know, I've gone through here a million times. There's no dash electrical. But before I dive deeper, I want to show you the schematic I have. I was able to pull from a Plymouth manual, and I just made a copy of it, so I've been writing on the print copy. Here's the amp meter, you know, on my cluster. It just says satellite rally cluster. But anyway, my amp meter gauge is actually down over here. And here's the cluster ground, which is here. It comes around. Okay, it's let's put this one in pink. So it's X10, goes to this. Okay, there's our ground. So that one makes sense. So that one makes sense, only again, the plug I have from the year 1 harness is not wide enough to fit over this. Moving along, 72 Roadrunner GTX responded. Of the two 18 gauge black wires, one is the cluster ground C, okay, which is this guy. That's wider than usual. And one is the keyed power supply to the voltage limiter B. Okay. So those two black wires I showed you that are coming out of the harness here, they're right there, but I don't show a full picture. One of them's gonna go there, one of them's gonna go there. So the one that goes here is the one that goes to ground. The original Rally harness uses a wider female Packard terminal on the ground lead. The other end of that lead is the harness ground near the far driver's side dash frame with starred ring terminal. If the replacement harness has two of the same size, verify by checking continuity to the harness and ground ring terminal, which is what we just did. The single Packard blue with white tracer A is ignition 1 for optional power window harness, not used otherwise. A, this guy right here, is for power windows, which I don't have. So I'm basically gonna not use that guy and just leave it hanging. The two ring terminals D and E are for concealed headlights, relay, breaker. Again, disregard if not equipped. Be sure to insulate both ring terminals if not used. So that would be these guys here, this green one and this blue and white one. I'm gonna go ahead and put some shrink tubing on there to seal them. I don't have hideaway headlights, so we're not gonna use those either, okay? So he said, keyed 12 volt positive is being supplied to the input side voltage limiter at your B labeled terminal via the accessory circuit. Will show continuity to the 12 gauge black wire at the ignition switch Molex connector if testing. On the output side of the voltage limiter is averaged about 5 volts, split out to the 3 sweep gauges during the small 4 connector splitter pigtail from the voltage limiter. Colored connectors at the gauge are variable grounds as determined by the various senders. Okay, so we're back to what I originally thought, which is, you know, positive 12 volts will go in here, and then it'll come out here 5 volts and supply each one of the gauges. So the crappy thing is that the positive wire going in here is black. And he said at the Molex connector, it's also black. The shorter black wire needs to go to the voltage limiter. And then I said, so just to clarify, the ground wire tied to the dash frame ring terminal, driver's side dash frame, goes to the C, which is too narrow in the aftermarket harness. I'll have to see if I can find a new connector. And he said, the two different size Packards are designed to prevent the smaller keyed power Packard from fitting onto the wider ground spade on the voltage limiter mounting bracket. If the replacement harness uses Packards of the same width, unlike the factory harness, you could trim down the voltage limiter ground spade should it prove difficult to locate a 3/8 wide Packard terminal, being careful not to mix them up. Okay, so it kind of makes sense. Those are both black wires, so it'd be easy, and they both come out of the harness in the same place, so it'd be easy to mix those up. That's why they use the wide Packard terminal. And I don't think I'm gonna find one, but let's look. So here's some, looks like 3/8 spade terminals. You'll listed 12 to 10 gauge. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and order that. Sucks, kind of hoping to button this up today, but oh well. All right, so this is the shorter one. It's gonna go here. And then when we get the 3/8 wide Packard connector, I'll have to change it out. Kind of a bummer. I'd really like to keep the factory style connector over it, but yeah, it is what it is. Let's go ahead and hook up the ground on that side. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this plastic piece off. So to get these out, I bought this kit on Amazon. It's got a million different, I don't know what you'd call these. And you basically, in this case, I want that guy. And you see that little gap right there? You're gonna push this in here. You're just gonna push on a barb so that it's no longer locked against the plastic. And then you can pull this out. There it goes. All right, so you can see here, there's the barb. And when I slid this in, basically pushed against that barb like that, because there's a step in here basically, which is gonna lock it so it doesn't fall off. And we'll take this connector off when we get the wider ones. I mean, I could probably just spread this one out, get it to fit, and then just put shrink tubing on the end. One thing 72 Roadrunner was suggesting was to just file this down and then just make sure you don't mix these up, because then they would stay the same size. A little more bite. Got my ground attached. Check continuity. Check it against here. Check it against frame. It's working. Harness is kind of in the way. But now I made this guy a little bit wider. Put some shrink wrap on it. And it'll attach there. Okay. Good. All right, so most of the mystery is solved. Just to recap, blue and white accessory. This plug goes to electric windows. I don't have electric windows, don't need it. It makes sense that year one would just make one part number, one harness, and they would just include everything in it. From the factory, there was probably several different harness part numbers, which if you didn't have hideaway headlights, these probably wouldn't even be in the harness, I assume. But anyway, we've got our green and our blue, and white here, which is going to the hideaway headlights, which I don't have. So basically put shrink tubing on the ring connectors and then wrapped it with electrical tape. We got the 2 black wires figured out. The longer of the 2 is going up here to the voltage limiter ground spade, and the other end of it is basically this this ring connector, which grounds to the frame. If we were to touch, you know, anywhere on the frame, it should beep, letting us know that we have ground. All right, I'm connecting to that wire. He did say it was on the accessory side. When I check here to this bus bar, I am getting continuity. If you look here, so this one is going to be power all the time, I think, and then this side is going to be accessory power. So basically it would only come on when the key's turned on, which makes sense. We're not going to want our gauges on all the time. We just want them on when the key's on in the run position. So I think we're good. 72 Roadrunner said you should be able to check continuity between here and the Comex connector to the black wire here. So let's do that real quick. I'm gonna put it on the 5-volt side. So that's connected there. And then turn that on. And when we check here, we got continuity. So that's good. So I think we're good there. Something else you could check continuity to. You could pick the 12-volt side, or you can pick the 5-volt side, doesn't really matter. But when you come over to the fuse box, the accessory plug there, which is connected to the bus bar, which basically all these fuses on this side are connected here. You can also verify continuity to that, which is what we want. You know, that's the accessory circuit. And it makes sense that the gauges would come on when you turn the key on into the run position, which supplies your accessories. So that's done. We are finally squared away on the electrical. Next thing I'm going to do is put the ducting back in here for the air conditioning, and then I think we're ready to throw this into the car. And a shout out to 72 Roadrunner GTX for the help. It's greatly appreciated. And yeah, anybody else out there that sees this video, the video has any confusion, you can go to for B-Body Mopars only, and you could see I put a bunch of pictures in there, which will probably be helpful. Maybe I'll throw them in this video too, to help guide you to connect this part of the circuit, which was what I found confusing.